Hello, TV Talk fans. There's a crazy, crazy thing happening today. Not only do we have an excellent panel, but it's so weird because I was invited to be on TV Talk for the first time, and they're like, why don't you just host it for the first time, too? So I'm Perri Nemiroff. This is my first time on TV Talk, really my first time hosting. I'm nervous, as I always am, for all this stuff, but I am so lucky because I have a great panel with me today. Emma Fyffe.
Hey,
I'm so happy you're here, Emma.
So nice to be back. Perri, it's so great of you to join us here on TV Talk for the first time ever, to just lead the charge in your Perri Nemiroff-like way.
Yeah. My favorite thing was you weren't in on the joke, and you're reading responses, and you're like, why do people think you've never been on before?
So irritated because you have to understand, guys, a lot of the time we will, and I know that Josh McCouga talks about this all the time, but we will get tweets from people being like, why don't you guys talk about Rick and Morty? I'm like we have for every freaking Monday since Rick and Morty has been on. So that was why I was getting annoyed about the Perri thing, but now I'm in on it.
Now though, I have to give credit to the person who continues to spread this first-time joke, and it's Miss Grace Hancock.
Oh, look at that transition.
First of all, segues. She's got a lot of talents, people. Also, like, look, man, a joke is never funny until it's been like 100 times told.
Exactly.
Also, Perri, you can't be nervous. You literally saw me with my pants down this morning. So that's what you're supposed to envision when you're nervous. So
That's not even a joke. I really did.
Hey, things are happening here at Collider.
All right.
Guys, I am Grace Hancock. Tweet me your Twitter questions at Mrs. Graceface, but you have to use the hashtag Collider TV Talk. This is that's the thing. And also hashtag Perri's first time.
Yep, and in a perfect transition, let's talk about Victor Garber. Tell me about this first story, Grace.
Right. So Victor Garber, everybody's favorite dad, who plays Firestorm on DC's Legends of Tomorrow, will be exiting the series during the current third season. Warner Brothers had no comment. However, it had been previously announced that Garber is going to be returning to Broadway to star in Hello, Dolly, so it's likely that that's the reason for his exit. But, you know, the show does have the time travel aspect, so it's going to be an easy, ploy to get him back on the thing. I mean, I know you're a big fan of the show. Do you think that this is an easy recovery for them?
You know what? I honestly do, because I have to say, having watched the season premiere of Legends of Tomorrow this season, it was so strong, so good. I'm loving Sarah being the captain. And on top of that, so it's very confusing in Legends of Tomorrow because Arthur Darvill plays a character in it named Rip, but on Doctor Who, he was Rory. And so for me, he'll just always be Rory. So I refer to him as Rory all the time.
Like Jon Snow.
However, there is another character on the show who is named Rory. So it gets a little confusing. But anyway, so he was kind of a main character for the first season. He was in and out for the second season. He was in the first episode of this season. And they made it seem like at the end of the last season that he's probably mostly going to be gone for this season.
Right.
And the thing is, he was definitely some of the star power behind it, along with obviously a big name like our dear Victor Garber, dad from Alias and owner of the Titanic, as he was. But I have to say that they've done such a nice job in this show of really building up the ensemble cast that I think they'll be able to recover from it.
It'll be a little more seamless.
They set it up in the first episode that
because it's been a long time coming. Right. Like this announcement about Broadway was made a while ago.
Exactly.
So
and they definitely did a good job setting up in this first episode of the idea that he may not come back. Like it actually seemed in the first episode like he was being written out.
Okay.
So he did join up with them at the end of the episode.
Oh, good. So it's like a pleasant surprise.
Exactly.
You're like,
after spoilers, they returned Julius Caesar to his own time period without knowledge of the future that allowed him to conquer the entire known world. There's all kinds of time paradoxes.
I'm following
I didn't know what story we were talking about. I'd really have no clue what this TV show was. But the report that I did read said that rumors of him being on the table, at least, to leave the show and go do something else has been around for a while, and they also said that they were prepared for it. So it's not like he's like, peace, all of a sudden I'm going to go do Broadway.
No.
Yeah, they had time to do it well.
Some people are saying, oh, he can do both. No, he can't do both because Broadway is one heck of a commitment. But fortunately, with the time travel element, you can always bring him back. But it doesn't seem, at least from my limited knowledge of the show and what I've seen from promotional material, it doesn't really seem like he is the centerpiece anymore, where the show and its success hinges on his face and name.
It definitely does. And as I say, the thing that's really strong about Legends of Tomorrow is that it is very much an ensemble show. Everybody is important to it. And so if you lose one piece of an ensemble, that doesn't break the entire formula. You know
I have
what I mean?
a show question for
Yes.
you, knowing about his character. I'm not sure
Yes.
if this is a spoiler, so maybe put the spoiler thingy up. Yeah, there we go. So he's half a firestorm.
Yes.
So some people are saying that means the other half of Firestorm might also peace out because he hasn't had much to do.
That is true. Yeah. I feel like it's again a credit to the strength of the writing on Legends of Tomorrow that nobody feels like they're that essential in a really good way. So
Oh, yeah. Good.
You know?
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Wow.
people. I know that sounds really weird, but I think
that sounds like the worst poll quote I've ever
It
heard.
really does. But it's actually a good thing because people, I think,
No,
at this
I
point are
understand
now
what you're-
a fan of the series. They're a fan of the brand more so than any individual character. I think
Right.
all of the characters bring something really unique and interesting to the table, and
Right.
it's gonna be
great.
all right.
It's
All
not
right.
like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like they're just like together. That's like so many different things
Yes.
that are really, really
Speaking
great.
of being a fan of a series and a brand, Grace, tell me about my next story.
God, she's nailing this first time on TV Talk. All right. The upcoming Purge TV show set to premiere next year on USA and Sci-Fi is going to center around what people do on the days they are not purging. The producer has said that he's telling fans not to expect a simple rehash of the films or a Purge of the Week story. Okay, we talked about this a little off air. While I do think that this is like an interesting, fresh new take on this franchise, and I do think that maybe for one or two films, I like this concept. However, I find with the state of the planet, this is kind of like morbid storytelling for me that I don't really want this in my life right now.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. It's not that it's bad. I just like life is hard.
No, and I agree that I feel that the concept of the Purge has been stronger than the actual execution in the films. So from that point of view, yes, I am intrigued by the idea of them doing a series because again, it's interesting concept.
Sure.
However, I don't disagree with what you're saying, Grace, about like the state of the world and
Well, and it's also like too close. You know, it's
Yes.
not like Mr. Mercedes where it's like there's one person and he's doing something bad, but we are trying to get him.
Right.
This is different because it's like everybody's doing something bad and it's okay. And I'm like,
It is a really tricky franchise to be expanding right now. I mean,
Right.
look at what happened with this past episode of American Horror Story. So,
Right.
obviously, I pray that nothing terrible happens again that calls for a show like that to
Right.
edit, to be removed, to not be released, to have a release date delayed. The only silver lining I could see in this is maybe given the fact that we are in such a tumultuous time right now and upsetting and there's terrible things happening, maybe that could push them in a more positive direction with the Purge. The Purge in itself is a really sinister idea, but there has to be opportunities to explore a more interesting, thoughtful mentality because I look at American Horror Story and I look at episode 1 of this season and I'm like, this is a bad idea. I don't need this in my life. You're not going to do anything that'll make me look at this in a positive way. And then I see how they've explored it and it's
that's a
way
really
more
valid
insightful
argument.
than
It
I
is.
ever thought it could have been. And if I'm moving away from all the real world stuff and just looking at the concept of the Purge right now, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
This is what they should be doing.
It's true, and to your argument, Perri, I mean, I think, you know, we look at series like for me, I strongly believe that Handmaid's Tale deserves every single Emmy Award it won. It was such a good series, and again, that is dealing with a really awful concept that is weirdly, sad to say, a little bit close to reality because
Yeah.
you know
It's not far off
it's
from the world
not.
we're living in, and you're like-
it's really not. But it forces you to look at it in an interesting way, and it's certainly not condoning that kind of behavior. And I certainly think that making a TV series of The Purge, nobody is going to make this series and be like, this is how America should be. It's like, no. This is why this is really fucked up. Let's take a broader look at it.
Right.
It
Yeah,
does
it's a double-edged
seem
sword.
like they could find the positive spin on it too if they're focusing on what happens before and after the Purge.
Yeah.
Because everything that takes place on Purge night, you're in the moment. You're either forced to defend yourself in an instant or you're one of those other crazy characters who chooses to take part in it. Whereas at least if we're focusing more so on what happens right before and right after, you're forced to really consider the repercussions of your actions. And one of the quotes that I read from Jason Blum, it was like, if you flip someone off on the road, you have to think about it. And maybe it is extreme to think, oh, that person's going to come after me on Purge night. But really, when you flip someone off on the road in real life, you should think about it. Was that the right thing to do? Was that the best course of action?
It's really interesting. I just started watching this new anime series called Kino's Journey to the Mysterious World or something like that. And the first episode involves him, actually her, but you'd think it's a boy, going to a town that where murder is legal. Like there's no
like why would you live
for murdering someone? Right.
Boy.
But she goes in with this idea of what this town is going to be, basically being like a purge kind of situation. But that's not it at all. Because murder is legal and everybody considers how they treat everyone else.
So everybody's like really nice.
Everyone's
like, Emma, you look so pretty today.
I mean,
don't kill me.
What is this called again?
It's called Kino's Journey.
Okay.
It's really, really interesting. But yeah, again, just that whole idea of like turning it on its head of, okay, murder is legal, but that makes everybody really think about their actions.
Right.
So they're really kind to one another. And basically the sort of attitude of the town is just because it's legal doesn't mean that we condone it.
That is really
It was really, really interesting.
I have certainly never flipped somebody off in traffic, so I don't know what we're talking about.
I don't believe that. All right, I don't even need to do a transition because I think what we were just talking about leads into American Horror Story very well.
Perfectly leads into.
Moly.
So, okay, first of all, Thursdays on the show are my favorite because we talk about all my favorite things. And I have to say, this episode of American Horror Story was absolutely my favorite episode. Yes, thank you, spoiler, from this season and maybe like from the series, truly. I was so moved by this episode. Evan Peters is outdoing himself. Like, he is doing his best work this season.
He's unfreaking believable.
And it was so poignant, like when he's like, with that weird like, like in the background, you're like,
what it really,
you can see it happening.
What it really reminded me of in the scene where he was talking with Ivy about like why she was angry and hated her wife, and have you guys ever seen or listened to the Stephen Sondheim musical Assassins? So Assassins, the first number is literally the like narrator being like, everyone take a gun, why don't you shoot a president? Like, and that's what it reminded me of when he was kind of convincing her to join this cult and how things could be better if she just embraced this idealism.
It was eerie because you can see how people who are lost, who are dealing with things, who don't know how to handle, like how they get into this kind of shit.
It also goes back to what Meadow said to Allie, I believe, in their conversation, where it's if you don't have a strong belief system, that's how someone like that can creep into your life. And he's really, it's not just about bringing it to screen and showing that that can happen. There's something about him that's adding an extra level of it where it gets in your own head. I mean, it's not like I'm sitting here considering following Kai's mentality, but
you're watching the pieces and you're like, okay, like I see it.
It's not just the extremes. You could see the truth behind what he's saying. He's going about it all the wrong way, but that's what makes material like this scary. And that's why I'm loving this season more so than any other season.
I agree.
They have the extremes. It's the events of this episode. They went to that level again, but they're doing it in a way that's so character and story based where it all serves a purpose.
And how fantastic is it the way that they have turned the story with Sarah Paulson completely on its head, where you go into it and at first you're like, she is crazy. What is wrong with her? And then you realize she's the only sane one.
Yeah, I know. And they're manipulating her. And the level to which they're manipulating her is really, it's disconcerting and upsetting because
it's hard to watch.
I was trying to think, how are they going to bring her back into play? Because there is no doubt after the events of the episode, she's going to be locked up. And really, it seems like the show is setting it up where the only person who will be able to get her out of prison is Kai, if he's manipulating the system in a way that serves him.
Yes.
And if that winds up happening, how does she react to Ivy? Then we also have the idea that Kai lied to the group. It doesn't seem like the group had any idea of what Meadow was really up to. So what's the repercussions now for Kai after?
I know. Well, it's interesting because I feel like you bring up a good point, Perri, of the only way she's going to get out is if Kai manipulates the system in his own favor, and for some reason getting her out of prison is favorable to his own cause. So then it's like her needing to learn how to play his game and work that against him, which could be so interesting.
You also have the Dr. Vincent piece of the puzzle, which I don't even really know what to make of that, because it doesn't seem like the group is aware of who he is, because his conversations with Meadow, there was one point in the show, in this episode, I can't remember specifically what it was, where I was wondering if Meadow knew who he was, and then you saw something with a phone call.
When she brings him and to him, and she's like, I have proof, I have evidence, talk to her, this is a witness, and then she sees that Kai's calling her, so she's like, oh no, like I'm fine.
I'm assuming Cheyenne Jackson's going to have some sort of big moment with the rest of the cult members, where I just wonder if maybe him and Beverly will take over from Kai, or Kai's fall is coming, because we all know that American Horror Story can't help but to throw in some big crazy twist at some point. I hope that's not the case, just because Evan Peters really is crushing it this season. But
oh my God, I know.
They can just go. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
been like a strangely tasteful way to do all this, which I did not expect, because I think, like all of us, when we heard that it was going to be like Trump and this, we were all kind of like, ugh.
And I'm a little curious too, because we saw the scene where she broke into the house of the woman who was going to run against Kai, and they had that great moment where they connected, and she's like, you believe me?
I'm so upset her role. I love Mare Winningham.
I know.
It was a great role, and she had a great part in this episode, but I'm so upset she had like an itty-bitty part in this.
Badass.
Oh, she's so good.
Her little like baby joint, I was like, oh my.
But the fact that Ivy didn't call Allie out.
Yep.
I know.
I'm curious to
the
see what
plot
that's all about.
thickens.
I know, really. I can't wait for next week's episode. One show that we do love and we don't have any more episodes for, or at least not yet, is Mr. Mercedes. So, Grace, let's talk about the season 1 finale.
All right, guys. Like, this show. It's just, I love Mr. Mercedes so much. I loved the season finale. It has been so well done, so just crisp, just no fat to trim. There was never even like any episode where I was like, oh, that was a one-off. Like, I felt like consistently this had a tone, a style, a storytelling, a pacing that totally kept throughout. And I loved this finale so much because it has been such a brutal season. It has been so much. And I felt like this wrapped up positively, but believably. And I loved it. What did you think?
To continue a running gag every time I'm on TV Talk, because I've said this, I'm pretty sure every single time, and I'm going to say it again. I am so thankful Josh asked me to come on a Thursday, because that was the only reason I was watching The Sinner and the only reason I was watching Mr. Mercedes. Mr. Mercedes was so damn good. Where even though I know where it ends up now, I want to go back and rewatch just to piece more things together.
Right.
Brendan Gleeson was so incredible in the whole thing.
And I think all the Emmys,
as you say, Perri, like, that is what was so successful about the series, is the fact that you felt like you really were going on this journey with him and discovering all of those puzzle pieces and putting them together, and then they finally come to a conclusion. It's incredibly satisfying.
And really, Harry Treadaway was something else too. I mean,
oh my God, he's like gonna haunt my nightmares forever.
More and more disturbing as it went along, and I had like a little bit of a crush on him from season 1 of Penny Dreadful. I thought he was great. But now I look at him, I don't think I'll ever be able to look at him the same way again after seeing the show.
He's a horrible person in real life, obviously. And of course, serial killer.
It is based on existing source material. It's based on a book, but the way that it starts off, and you're like, man, his mom is the worst, and you're like, no, he's the worst.
I know, and it
like
just
she was trying to get away.
That's what's so scary about it, is because the show definitely puts in the forefront the fact that, like, he's just pure evil. That's what his character is, and he targeted him. He knew they could go head to head, and it was about them playing that out in parallel the entire season. And that's why I liked where it ended up so much, because, you know, I feel like most of the time when you have a mystery like this, you want that big bombastic ending where some crazy shootout happens or they fist fight or something. No, they were just standing there, and him having a heart attack in the moment, and then also having Holly and Jerome's help. It's just like everything came together so perfectly, where it still kept intact who those people were at the very beginning of the show. So I thought everything fell into place really nicely at the end.
Yeah, exactly. And I loved, like, oh my gosh, I loved that it was Holly at the end with her freaking adorable little dog
was
thing.
great,
I was just like, I saw her like coming up, and I was like, oh girl, yeah. And then Jerome, like just deactivating the thing.
And
it
even
was like
Lou
a team
getting
win.
her moment also. I mean, Lou is basically the main reason that they stopped, because if they hadn't found her, they never would have known he was in a wheelchair with a shaved head.
And like, it just goes to show like what a great villain he was. It in the end killed his mom, didn't care about his mom, killed his only best friend, like his only friend in the world. Like it was like he just got so evil. He spiraled so low and dark, and I was just like, oh my gosh, it was so well done.
I have a big question. What do you think of the very, very end of the episode? Because they are clearly saying something, or at least in my mind, it was very clear.
Okay, what was?
I mean,
Meaning
the song was somewhat warped, and then it wasn't.
Yes.
And given the conversation that just happened with the doctor,
Right.
that implies that something reconnected.
Yeah, well, that he's
Like that
not,
he's going to-
not quite dead.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
there is a possibility that when it comes back for season 2,
Yeah.
Right.
we could be back with these same characters. I mean, on the good guy side, at least, I most
Sure.
certainly hope that the whole team comes back together, because I really liked Bill, Jerome, and Holly as some sort of crime fighting team.
It was
The two
like a
of
modern
them
day
were-
like Scooby-Doo mystery
Yeah.
team, and I was like, yeah.
It was great, and Ida next door
And
too.
Ida, I know.
She was.
Oh, Ida.
She really helped a lot
yes.
this season, because when you have material as dark as this,
Sure.
I think you needed her quips and her lightheartedness with Bill. I mean, even in this last episode, when
I
he
know.
calls to her and he's like, "Get out of that," she's like, "I have my dinner and my wine, and I'm
I know.
happy."
She's like, go to your son's house. Like,
spectacular.
nah, he's kind of a bore.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm
she's
just
great.
really, really excited about
Yeah.
this. I'm curious to see. I haven't read the book, and
I
I,
haven't
don't
either.
know
Me
what's
neither.
possible based on source material with these
Sure.
characters going forward, but I'm really happy with this, and I want to spend more time with them, but at the same time, I don't want them to take away from the mystery
The
and how it played
perfection
out
of
now.
season
But
one.
and
It was a
how-
perfect season.
Yes.
that is the risk you run with any show
I know.
that
Yep.
continues.
Yep.
I know.
That being
just
said,
wonderful.
I have a question for you, because I've never seen any Riverdale. I know people love the first season. I need to watch it. Did the first episode of season 2 live up to the hype?
Oh my god.
Oh, I think so for
I
sure.
loved it.
I mean,
Riverdale is.
it's just the best. We were
it's
talking-
such a
it's-
dumb show, you guys. It really is, but it knows it doesn't take itself that seriously. That's why it's so successful. I mean, it is.
Right.
It is an over-the-top night soap murder drama featuring
teenagers.
characters from Archie Comics. Like
Yeah.
it's spectacular. I love the design of this show.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So much. Spoilers, sort of, except for we saw what happened at the end of the last season. So basically, Archie's dad gets shot. Big shocker.
Oh, like that?
Yeah, like that. Luke Perry. Luke Perry's not doing so well, you guys.
He's like shot.
And Archie like rushes him to the hospital. So one of the things that's so brilliant about the design of this show, because it is loosely inspired by this comic series that's been around since the 50s. The design makes you a little confused about where you are in time. Sometimes, like, they all have cell phones,
Yeah,
so we
this
know
one
it's
especially.
contemporary. But when they're at the hospital, like, the hospital looks so old school. Everybody has these little, like, button-up Peter Pan collars. The nurses in, like, a
And
very,
the sign
like,
just says hospital, like in red letters.
Yeah, and the nurses in this very, like, crisp white little thing.
Right.
Like, it's so sort of uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I think intentionally so.
Right. Well, and I loved super spoiler. I loved that the dad is okay.
I know, God.
The father-son dynamic in this episode like got me like all up in the feels.
and all of Fred's, like, fever dreams.
I know, and I was like, I swear to God, if you guys are gonna make me sit through 43 minutes of this shit, and then this guy dies, I'm gonna be so pissed. Like somebody's
throw
gonna
this
hear
TV
from
out
me.
a window.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I think this is. We were talking off air. This totally feels like My Pretty Little Liar Void.
Yeah.
but like just with more
Yeah,
cast members.
yeah, it's great.
That's
No,
what
it's-
makes me
you-
want to
I
watch
think
it
you
more,
should-
because
Yeah, yeah,
you
and
know,
it's all on
I need
Netflix.
to have room for some Pretty Little Liars
You
short
do.
material in
Yeah.
my life, and this is going to be it.
I would say
Yeah.
that my only complaint about this episode is one of the complaints that I actually had about last season, which was the whole Miss Grundy storyline. This is a major spoiler. So Miss Grundy, Archie had
hate
an
Miss
affair
Grundy.
with his music teacher, and that was really it. There was no additional story to it.
She left town.
She left town. At the end
Okay.
of this episode, she's back in it. She's like clearly having a thing with another student. And I'm like, oh man, we're gonna get her whole storyline. We're gonna find out why she's such a piece of
Yeah.
shit. Nope. She just gets murdered.
And then the episode's over.
End of the episode. I don't understand.
I can't. I hated her
Well-
storyline in season one because I was like, why?
Yeah.
Like, do your
And
teacher,
he doesn't
whatever,
really
but like,
have
why?
any emotional repercussions for it. Like, that's
No.
a really serious problem.
Well, and that's like that's one of those things too. That's like I'm like, ugh, like, are we putting
Yeah.
that in the scene every show?
Yep,
Like,
yep.
good. But then again, I was like, oh, this bitch, we're gonna find out. And clearly, she's having like kisses this like
Right,
14-year-old boy.
Yeah, she's like making
You're
out with this,
all right,
this
that's
piano
great.
student.
And then
So-
she really does just die. So there's no payoff. I hated her in season 1, and I don't know where they're going to take
I
it for
have
season
I'm
no
gonna
2.
binge
idea.
this no matter what at some point, just because I did grow up reading a lot of Archie, but you guys didn't sell it as strongly as I thought.
No, you're gonna. It's
No,
very.
you'll love it. It's
okay.
really
The
good.
production design is amazing. Actually, the acting and the casting is really well done,
really-
and it knows that it's kind of campy and a little over the top, but it's done in a way that you're totally on. Like Pretty Little Liars, where you bought it. You were
Okay.
like, oh, I'm in it. Like, so definitely do it. I kind of stumbled upon it on Netflix, and I'm so happy I did.
All right. Well,
But
that's
anyway,
gonna be
season's
that's going to be the case for me soon enough.
First season only 13 episodes. So.
All right.
yeah.
I'm in.
So, anyway, oh my gosh, all these amazing shows, but we are going to throw it over to our amazing, the one and only Allison Keane.
Hey everybody, I'm Collider.com TV editor Allison Keane here with the latest edition of TV Performer of the Week. So I was lucky enough to be sent the entire first season of The Deuce on HBO for review. So I've waited to honor this particular person until now because her character goes through so much this season that is just extraordinary and heartbreaking to watch. The actress is Maggie Gyllenhaal, who plays Candy, which is her stage name, a prostitute without a pimp who has ambitions to get into the movie business, although the actual business side of it along with the rest. The Deuce is not an easy show to love. It's a little hard to get into in its first episodes. It's very raw and an often incredibly depressing story about the rise of pornography in New York City in the 1970s. Basically at a time when Times Square was starting to get cleaned up, so sex workers were moved off the street and into essentially brothels or rudimentary studios for porn films. If you've been watching The Deuce, which comes from David Simon, the creator of The Wire, you'll know that Maggie Gyllenhaal has been a true standout in a show full of outstanding performances. But her character is such a fascinating one because, as I mentioned, she's the only girl portrayed who doesn't have a pimp, and she comes from a very middle-class background and supports a son who lives with her mother. So there are a lot of questions about how she got into this work and why she's still in it. Especially after the last few episodes where we've seen Candy violently beaten by a deranged John, witness the death of a John in the middle of a sexual act, and in What Kind of Bad from this week, we see her keeping her emotional distance from a man who she's dating, and having an incredibly affecting argument with Method Man's Rodney, a pimp who keeps trying to bring her into his stable. At first he's complimentary to the point where Candy just starts laughing hysterically and then crying at the same time over his bravado versus everything she's been through recently. And at that point Rodney turns on her, and their violent verbal sparring is frankly pretty difficult to watch because of how real it feels and how deeply it cuts to the very core, especially as Rodney details all of her other near-death experiences at the hands of other violent Johns. But it also propels her into the movie business again, making a decision for herself to do things differently. Gyllenhaal has been a revelation this entire season, completely owning her story and becoming the most compelling and fascinating character in, again, a season full of great stories. But there's something about how Gyllenhaal both makes Candy accessible to us and keeps her at arm's length as far as really knowing her, and it's just remarkable. Who Candy really is and any happiness she might feel or allow herself to feel is so deeply buried that neither she nor we may ever really see it. And yet, she's so compassionate and caring and real. Bottom line, we already knew that Gyllenhaal is an exceptional actress, but her work on The Deuce has been so incredible and fearless and nuanced, there's really nothing else on TV that's even coming close to what she is doing on that show. So, if you've been on the fence about The Deuce, watch it for Candy, but there's so much more to it. For now, Maggie Gyllenhaal is my TV Performer of the Week for The Deuce on HBO. See y'all next time.
And thank you so much, Allison. We appreciate you so much. We're going to go to a quick Twitter question. We're going to go with our friend Steve Calderon. If you guys had the chance to pitch an idea to Ryan Murphy for next season's American Horror Story, what would it be? Emma.
I've been listening to a lot of true crime podcasts, so I would do American Horror Story, Candyman. Look at the Candyman murders. They are terrifying. It took place in the 1970s in Houston.
I would do American Horror Story, Marilyn Monroe.
Oh,
I think I would do American Horror Story, something set in the movie and TV industry, because I think there's a lot to be said about that in a similar way that they're approaching politics right now.
I like it.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I like that.
I like that.
Alrighty. So now
Nailed it, Perri.
Yeah, I nailed it. I have a million more ideas too, but we don't have time for that. What we do have time for right now is, oh crap, like
You got it.
Like,
Just
what?
go
I
big
don't
or
even
go
know
home.
what to do. All right,
You just embarrass yourself.
So I'm just gonna do it like he used to do old school pick of the week. Ready?
Yep.
I don't know if I can do it.
You can.
I can't do it. Just say it.
Perri,
Perri. Pick of the day.
Yay! Valiant
That
effort.
was so weird. I didn't like it. All right. So the pick of the day question today is there. We talk about it all the time. There's a ton of great teams right there.
I'm fine. I'm just dying because my answer is literally on the TV behind Grace.
Well then, spoilers.
So funny.
There's a whole bunch of great TV on right now. We're constantly talking about the fact that we just don't have enough time to watch everything. So the question today is, what is at the very top of your binge watch list? What are you catching up on before anything else?
Well, I mean, you know, good old Emma Mation here highly recommends that you catch up on Voltron. The new season drops on Friday. So, yeah, it's a really great show. Korean animation studio, Studio Mir, same studio that worked on Legend of Korra. A lot of the same people working on it. It is a really great show.
All right, Grace, what you got?
I would really love to catch up on Versailles and Aquarius.
Yeah.
Okay,
those are
so
two of my
Riverdale
jams.
is clearly on my list.
Yes.
But I loved Candle Cove, so I really want to watch the next season, No End House. I think they're about halfway through the season, but the moment I get the chance, because I binged Candle Cove, and I think I liked it more for that reason, so I am binging No End House the second that wraps up.
Nice. Yeah,
There you
I'm
go.
going to add that to mine, too. I forgot about that show. That show
Yeah.
was so terrifying and
Isn't it?
weird.
Yeah, it's great. It's
I loved
wonderful.
it. Yeah.
Just like what I like to watch
Yeah.
on TV all the time. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of TV Talk. And now, of course, I need to thank my wonderful panelists who made this so much fun and so comfortable. Emma Fyffe, where can everyone find you on the internet?
You can find me all over the internet at my name, Emma Fyffe, EMMAFYFFE.
And the one and only Grace Hancock.
And I am Grace Hancock. I will do my best to keep my pants on for the rest of the day. You can find me online everywhere at Mrs. Grace Face.
And you guys can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at P. Nemiroff. Mailbag this weekend. Collider Behind the Scenes and Bloopers is all about our trip to New York Comic Con. You're going to want to check that out. All right. I like books, so it pains me to say this, but because I'm on TV Talk right now.
We all like books, too.
Put down the book, pick up the remote.
Hey everybody, Josh McCouga here. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Collider TV Talk. Want to watch more episodes? Click there. It's an interactive link. Or for more Collider content, click down there. Subscribe to the channel. Tell all your friends. Get an airplane. Drive it by that says Collider. I'm not telling you to buy an airplane. Just do whatever you want as long as you're watching Collider video.